Hello, I'm David Boggs, a professor of strategy and international business at Eastern Illinois University. I've been here for 6 years, did my doctorate at the University of Texas at Dallas. In addition to my research and teaching, I take students on study abroad trips and am a faculty advisor for the International Business Club. In terms of research, I'm engaged with EIU faculty as well as external colleagues and some of my graduate students, and my research interests are in the areas of strategy and international business. More particularly, I'm interested in internationalization of firms, technology and infrastructure issues as they relate to emerging markets, and international experience. International experience has been found to increase communication and listening abilities. It enhances one's ability to manage diversity. It helps understand world markets, which are increasing in importance. It increases inquisitiveness and innovation. It helps with examining ethical issues from a more nuanced perspective. It helps one develop vision and a broad picture mindset. And all of these are benefits of international experience that are somewhat in contrast to an older prevailing view that being engaged in international business and operations was detrimental to the career progression of managers because of being out of sight and out of mind. My experience with research with a former student has identified that international experience, in fact, increases the likelihood that one will be selected to the CEO position. International experience itself can be measured in many ways. Does one have the international experience or not? How many years? What countries? How many countries? Were the countries culturally, economically, or geographically different or distant from the home country? Currently, I'm working specifically on 3 projects related to international experience. The first is with 2 finance faculty from the School of Business at Eastern. Our work is looking at what is the stock price reaction to the announcement and the installation of new CEOs with international experience versus those without international experience. We expect to and are investigating to see if we observe an increase or a positive stock market reaction to the installation of a CEO with greater international experience, particularly if that individual is replacing one with less international experience. Again, the more international the firm, the more influential we would expect the relationship to be. The second project that I'm working on that relates to international experience is in regard to willingness of workers to obtain international experience. As I mentioned, some view a position abroad as a detriment to one's career progression, and others view it more positively. And we are seeking to understand what are the factors that influence people to take international positions and what are ways to encourage this given the increased importance of international experience. With one of the graduate students at Eastern, we have examined our graduate and undergraduate students' willingness to work in an international context. And interestingly, we found very little difference based on students' age, based on their course of study. But we did find that personal relationships are very influential. If one has family and friends with international experience, they're more willing to obtain that or seek that out for themselves. The third and final study about international experience I would like to talk about is a study of study abroad. As I mentioned earlier, I take students abroad, and we see a difference in the students that's hard to quantify of the change in their how they compose themselves when they have experience living, working, studying, spending time in another country. And the third study with a graduate student at Eastern is a study on student willingness to study abroad. This is a study of strictly the undergraduate students and identifies the items which influence them to not go or to go abroad, and perhaps interesting for students if they are engaged in varsity sports or have other strong commitments that reduces their likelihood of being able to study abroad. But our other findings have been that students who have studied abroad once are more willing to work abroad later or study abroad or engage in other international engagements. And this suggests that getting individuals to take a small international experience will open them to much greater, more extensive international experiences, and our additional research shows that that is a career-enhancing choice. In conclusion, there are certainly many areas to continue this research and expand it. One is to look at the United States versus Europe versus Japan, China, Asia, and other countries of the world. In general, Europeans place a very high emphasis on gaining international experience, perhaps more so than Americans. And it would be very interesting, it's certainly interesting to me and my colleagues, to learn more about how the companies value international experience amongst their workers. Lastly, I've mentioned that I have an interest in emerging markets versus developed markets, and it would be very interesting to identify if there are any differences between one's experience in emerging markets as an international experience versus the developed markets, which are not as different from the United States.